Hello, everyone. I'm Gio.
And I'm Oscar.
This is the Come Up. So, today's episode is going to be a little bit different. It's not going to be about finance directly. We want to share with you guys a little bit of where we have come from and some of the things.
And how we got here and what are some of the struggles that we've had to overcome along the way.
Yep. With the intent to show you that we're not trust fund babies, right? And we're very similar, very much like regular everyday people hopefully watching.
Hey, we don't need to do a disclaimer this episode.
We don't need to do a disclaimer. That's very good.
But
we do need to say this. This is an uncomfortable thing to do. So if you guys enjoy this, give us a like, subscribe, leave comments, trash our history, whatever you will.
So the reason why we wanted to do an episode like this is that when we were younger, there were times when I think internally we wanted to see more people in our family and friends that would talk about topics like this, things like finance or college, and don't get me wrong, like we love our family, we're very grateful, but they just didn't have that experience or opportunity because we're first generation in the U.S. For them to go to college here, and so we had to figure out a lot of things ourselves, including money, and so now we're happy to share that knowledge with you because we think you shouldn't have to figure out some of this stuff on your own, and we had some resources that we've tapped into, and we can probably save you a little bit of time from having to go and dig and on some of these topics. So that's our hope. So what we're going to do is we have about 3 or 4 main questions that we're going to each take turns answering, and we hope that these will be valuable to you.
So the biggest obstacle, I guess I would not say that I've had one individual large obstacle. It's just the general experience of being an immigrant in a new country. This goes for any country. We happen to be in the U.S., but the idea of you have to learn a new language, right? Anytime you move schools, you need to make new friends, but if you don't speak the same language, that is a more difficult, a more challenging thing to do. And of course, a lot of people here speak Spanish too, but they spoke more Spanglish than just Spanish, right? So if you don't have the English half of that, you're not going anywhere. Here in LA, that's right. Here in LA, anyone that speaks Spanish mostly speaks Spanglish. So there's still an element there of a foreign language for someone that's an immigrant to this country. But that's gonna be one thing. Obviously, being an immigrant puts you at a little bit of a economic disadvantage, right? Because your parents focus so much on putting food on the table, right? So it's you need to eat, right? Your parents want to provide.
That becomes their main focus.
That becomes their main focus. You know what I mean? So you have to figure a lot of stuff out on your own. And I assume that this is the case with any immigrant that was here as a kid, that came here as a kid. So there's a lot of stuff that isn't traditionally, school is challenging and the classes are hard, or if you go down the path of bullies or anything like that, those are very traditional challenges that American citizens would have. So all of the difficult things that they would have to go through, add on top of that an extra layer of being an immigrant, learning a new language, not understanding, the culture, not understanding social norms because they could be different, and in some ways they were different from my experience. So that's it. Isn't any one individual challenge. Just being an immigrant in general is a challenge in and of itself.
Yeah.
You know,
one of the stories that I recall as a bit of a lighthearted story is when I showed up to class. I want to say it was fourth grade for the first time here in the U.S. My name changed essentially because I remember the teacher said, "Hi everyone, this is Oscar," and then I'm standing there, not understanding what's being said, and but I heard her say Oscar, and I'm thinking, she's talking about me? My name is Oscar, and
So his own name, like that's a thing. Just even the same word is pronunciated in a different language.
Yeah, and so definitely you go through moments. I think, like you said, where it just in this case the language, but where you get cultural shock or and then of course, like you said, to add on top of that, all the other struggles that kids go through. My answer is actually the very similar or the same as Gio's, because I came to the U.S. as well as a young age at 9 years old. I think for him it was a few years after. In terms of being able to communicate, and how do you deal with like bullies, right? Even in El Salvador, I knew snitches get stitches. So, when I was in the playground and these kids want to come up and what they didn't know though is I had drank a lot of organic cow's milk in the farm growing up, so there was a few of them that were in for a surprise when they tried to come up on me. But as we got older, eventually I was no longer drinking the cow's milk, so everybody caught up to me by middle school in terms of strength, pretty much. So it only lasted for a few years.
The superpower.
But by then, I guess I knew enough of the language to begin to kind of get by. That's completely agree. There's a term actually, and this is more in academic probably circles, but it's the 1.5 generation, which is those kids that come here at a very young age, often in their before their teenagers or early teenage years, and you become multicultural essentially. You have both the culture of the country where your parents came from, and you have the culture of being an American, right? Because you're still young enough that you pick up everything really fast,
right?
And so you kind of have this dual personality almost, where where you're at home, you act a certain way and you are this one person, but when you're not at home, you're a different person, and then you begin to navigate these dual personalities, and it's an interesting thing. It's on the one hand, when your parents are so focused on just providing for you, it gives you a certain level of freedom, especially once you get to your high school years, which can be a blessing and a curse, because if they're not, if that they're not aware of what is happening in your life outside of home, then it becomes easy for you to fall into temptation of bad things. All right. And so I think that will come up a little later in our...
I'm not admitting to anything here. But I will say your name story reminds me a lot of my own name issues, because my last name starts with a B.
Don't give it away.
My last name starts with a B, and so whenever teachers would take a roll call, I would be one of the first ones that they would call. And every single time, without fail, every single time that I would see them look at the paper and start to just kind of hesitate and struggle to mention a name, I automatically knew that was me. So, yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah, those little moments, sometimes cause you to lose a little bit of confidence, right? Because tell you the truth, before I came to the U.S., I identified as being a very smart kid, and like I felt smart, like I kept up with what the teachers asked of me, and then hey, all of a sudden I'm in this new country, and and now I'm just struggling trying to keep up with what the teacher's saying. I don't understand what the teacher's saying. Luckily, I had a very nice teacher as a first teacher, Mrs. Bell. If you're out there, thank you for being kind and nice to me, and that helps. When you have adults around you that are looking out for you genuinely, sincerely, because I hear horror stories or just stories of mean teachers, and I've known some mean teachers. So, anyways, I digress.
Yeah, my ESL teacher throughout middle school was mean.
Uh-huh.
So, yeah, that was tough. But I guess I learned the language, so maybe she did a good job. Maybe being a tough teacher can help. I don't know, whatever.
Sometimes it's, some teachers are tough and you learn, but yeah, some of them were just outright mean.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, so we talked about the biggest obstacle. Did we want to mention anything more about, like the whole, I got in trouble in high school or not at all? Or, I mean, I can do it, because we were starting to get there and I kind of stopped it and you were like, I'm not going to see anything.
I'm not going to admit to anything.
I'm not going to admit to anything.
I can admit, and
yeah.
We're having a conversation right now.
Right.
I could say that when coming to the U.S., excuse me, when coming to the U.S., we lived in L.A. in two different places. We lived in Koreatown for some time, and we lived in South Central for some time. Most people that watch this are not gonna know necessarily anything about Koreatown, but I'm pretty sure very few people outside of LA have never heard of South Central, so they can picture South Central. And like you said, you have a little bit more freedom, because the focus is more on providing for kids, and so freedom could be a good thing. Freedom could backfire. In this case, it backfired. I got in a decent amount of trouble as a kid. And those are always conscious decisions. Even if you're a kid, it's a conscious decision, because after some time we ended up moving to Nebraska, and I remember specifically making the conscious decision, I'm gonna get my act together and I'm gonna finish school, I'm gonna go to college. I remember making those decisions once we were moving. So you do become a product of you can become a product of your environment, and a lot of your influences will influence you, right? Not necessarily that they're trying to, but you see things and you want to be part of the group, so you do some of the things that people are doing. But
there's a saying that I think your parents probably used to say. My parents used to say, tell me who your friends are, and I'll tell you who you are. And there's some grain of truth to that. As much as I hate to admit it, as you get older, there's certain things that your parents say that you kind of begin to understand, right? Why they say it. And if I'll let you finish, Gio, and then I was just going to add a little bit. I don't know if there was anything else you wanted to add.
That's as much as I'm going to admit on camera. But I got in a lot of trouble. We lived in not the affluent areas, not the rich areas of LA, not what people see on TV in terms of Hollywood. It's very much immigrant dominated or minority dominated areas, and my influences were not the best at the time, and so I did some things that I wouldn't do today, and I did some things that if my kids did, uh, and that's actually a huge part of doing something like this, because as we have grown, we want to help improve our, when I say our peoples, I mean improve the immigrant community, the children of immigrants, or any minorities, and share information with you guys that we came across a lot of the time as adults already. But yeah, I don't want my kids to go through the same, so I have got my stuff together, and everything that we're sharing with you guys here, I'm gonna share with my kids. And I believe you have the same plan, because we don't want them to live through the stuff that we lived through, which we are sure a lot of you have lived through as well.
Yeah, I actually, now that you mentioned that, well, I'll say two things. I'll tell a little bit about how my experience was similar to yours, and that I also got in trouble in my high school years. I think that's probably the years when it tends to happen. And second is I actually wanted to be a sort of a positive influence for my younger brothers. So anyone who knows me, they hear me talk about my younger brothers. Because I knew they were going to go through some of the same choices that I had gone through, and and I wanted them to be a little bit prepared, a little bit more focused on, doing well in school, a little less focused on maybe some of those troublesome activities, and so yeah. But anyway, so to kind of go back. I'm not gonna also admit to anything here, but but let's just suffice it to say that once upon a time I was a young high schooler who was excited to have his driver's license, and I tinted the windows in my car. I had nice rims. I had subwoofers in the back, two 12-inch kickers that would blast, and I probably am gonna lose my hearing before I get to really old age because of it. But I think that's common when you're a teenager, and those are the years when you're trying to find your identity. Find who is it that you want to be, and that's the reason why I think those years is tempting to try just a bunch of different things, because you're finding out what you like and what you don't like, right? And so, anyways, as Gio was saying, we share a little bit of this, of our story, because, we're going to share it with our kids, and we share it with you, so that if you're a youngster, I'd say, just be mindful of who you're surrounding yourself with. You probably hear this from your parents, but maybe hearing it from a different source might, help ingrain that. Be mindful of focusing on things like your education. I know it's not cool to say that, especially if you went to a school like Locke High or Narbonne High. Sometimes it feels like it's not cool to say like, oh yeah, I'm doing well in school. Instead we were focused on I was actually trying to do well in school, but I wasn't telling that to anybody, and I was instead over here putting on my large Pro Club white shirt, making sure I had my Nike Air Force Ones,
Yeah,
and the JanSport backpack, because that was the image of what it meant.
That was the thing.
That to be cool, right? It wasn't cool to get 100% on your grade. Matter of fact, I remember times when I purposely did not want to get 100% on a test. Because, right, what happens? You start being called a bookworm or a nerd, or it's unfortunate that was the case, but we are social creatures, as Gio mentioned, and if you think about it, it's actually an adaptive mechanism, right, to survive in a way, right, to avoid being bullied or whatever. So play it smart.
I will promise you this. Everything he said was true, and for a period, I guess it's not gonna be cool to get good grades and do well in school. But I promise you this: do well in school and go to college and pick a marketable major. Pick a major that has demand in the marketplace, and you're gonna get paid. You're gonna get paid, and those days where you felt down because someone was making fun of you, that's gonna seem so far and so insignificant, because that period lasts, I don't know, 4 years of your life maybe. And then once you're getting paid, say like you graduate in your early 20s, you graduate college with a bachelor's degree in your mid 20s, and if you pick something, definitely something in the STEM fields, but if not, something in business, something marketable, something where you can make some money, then you have 30, 40 years. Or if you're in the fire movement, you're gonna save more money and work for less time. But either way, it's still gonna be 10, 15 years, right? Of getting paid, of making good money, getting paid, which is 3-4 times the length that high school lasted. So
right, it seems at the time like that's all there is. Like that's the most important thing. Looking good in that little environment that you're in when you're in high school, but once you get out of it, you realize there's a whole lot more to life than those 4 years of high school. Yeah. So you're right. Yeah. So I believe I was perhaps second year in college when I chose to go the route of international business as a major, and then probably on third year, I decided to add a double major on MIS, Management Information Systems, which is essentially just means using computers to do, a lot of it is data analysis today for me. So that's what I do. I'm a consultant, and I provide consulting and data analysis. I know it sounds boring, for automotive industry, but in a way, it for me it's interesting because I get to see how the data can help our customers make better decisions on how they incentivize dollars on the cars that they want to sell. So maybe there's a certain APR rate that they want to put on a vehicle to sell more of that car, or a certain lease payment. They want to get it down to a certain number so that people are more inclined to lease their vehicle as opposed to the competitors. But backing up a bit, and I wanted to mention that it was not easy for me to pick a career. I was not sure. I was not one of those people that knew exactly what they wanted to do from a young age. It shifted. I mean, when I was a kid, I told my parents I wanted to be a doctor. I guess that's probably quite common. And then, in my high school years, I wasn't sure what I wanted to do, but luckily, I did have the desire to go to college, and once I got there, I asked around. I went to actually a sort of coaching session that was meant to help people pick their majors, and Gio brought it up. The idea of choosing something marketable, something that's in demand. That's what I wanted to do. I mean, if you're a child of immigrant parents, chances are you have the desire to have a way of providing for yourself, for your family, and so I chose business. I know it's a stereotype. It's common. So what? It's helping me pay the bills today, and so I don't regret it one bit. But you want to find something that's on the corner of what's interesting to you, and it's gonna help you make money. Right, that's the ideal intersection of where you want to be, right? Because at the same time, you wouldn't want to be doing something just for the money, right?
Do you like what you do?
I do. I do like what I do. Yeah. But, and there's plenty of other videos talking about that kind of thing. So we're not going to spend a lot of time on that. But, that's the idea is find something marketable that's, at least somewhat interesting to you and then get paid, make that money come up.
Yeah. And then invest that money and grow it, double it, triple it.
Yes. How about you, Gio? Why did you pick your career as a programmer?
Yeah. So the programming was not my first major. Did you say that you switched majors, or no? You just were undecided for some time.
Yeah, I was undecided.
You were undecided for some time. I know that there's been like studies and a lot of people switch majors when they're in college, and that was my case. I was going for graphic design, and I got an associate's in graphic design. But before I got it, I had already decided I was going to switch to computer information systems, which is similar to computer science. And that I did that. I switched from graphic design to computer information systems, and then got my bachelor's in that a couple of years later. When I first came to the States, there's a story that you'll remember. When I first came to the States, we have another cousin. His name is Nelson, and he used to be this huge Mortal Kombat fan and a huge Simpsons fan. And I believe you and him had been working on like a Simpsons website, and he had separately like a Mortal Kombat website.
I learned from him, and I went on to make a Simpsons website.
Yeah, and so that's kind of how. Now, before that, my dad was a software engineer too. When from his back in El Salvador, that's what he used to do. So I had already been introduced to computers and everything, but I hadn't actually gone into code or anything like that until I guess a little bit. I had seen a little bit with my dad. If he's watching this, yes. I had seen some code with my dad, but I also I got a little bit more interested in it once I saw the websites and stuff that you could create. So Oscar was working on the Simpsons website. Our other cousin was working on the Mortal Kombat website, and then I love Dragon Ball Z. I started working on the Dragon Ball Z website, and I remember being a little kid, maybe 11, 12, and I asked my dad, can we buy a .com? It's called a domain name, but I said, can we buy a .com? And he's like, yeah, sure, let's do it. So I had to figure out how you go and buy a domain name, and I don't remember exactly what it was. I wish I did. I tried to look it up, but it's been such a long time I forgot. But yeah, so I get my degree in computer information systems, and I've been doing this now for over 10 years. So as a now senior software engineer, I create software for universities. There's different uses that they have for the stuff that we make. I've been on a team for a few years working on bookstores that universities will, pay us to install our bookstore software, where a lot of students will go and pay for tuition. They'll actually go buy the actual books. A lot of times you don't buy books, you buy sweaters, you buy keychains, you buy other paraphernalia for the school. I don't know if that's the word. Maybe not paraphernalia. Gear, school gear.
Yeah.
You go buy school gear at these bookstores. So that is it pays well. It pays, anything marketable will allow you to make some money, and as Oscar said, if you're an immigrant and you live the immigrant experience in the United States is a very expensive country to live in. People don't know that. People think that, you go to the US and you're already made, and that's not the case. Our parents, not only did they have to hustle back then, they're still hustling today, to make it. It's a very expensive place to live and work. And so, yeah, as an immigrant, you wanna make money. That's really what it comes down to. You want to live a little bit better than you did as a little kid, and you want your children to live better than you did growing up. And that part is not an immigrant experience, but the rest of it, I believe it is, And so, yeah,
I wanted to just kind of jump on one of the points that you were saying there, and sorry, it slipped my mind right now, but it's going to come to me in a second. Well, one, I wanted to mention that our cousin that you brought up also served as an inspiration for me, and I forgot to mention that part. So that's where I got started as well with using computers, because I had not seen a computer, or at least not used one, until I went over to my cousin's house. Yeah, when I was maybe 10 or 11 years old. And so I asked my dad, "Hey, Dad, can we get a computer?" And it was expensive at the time. I mean, this is in like 98, 99. And I don't recall if he said anything at the time, but it was a big ask. Let's say. And then I remember one day he came home after work, and one of his, I guess, coworkers was upgrading his computer, and he had a Windows 95 compact computer that he donated it, or he gave it to my dad, and I had 1 gigabyte of storage, which that's by today's standards.
It was probably a lot at that time.
But yeah, even then it was not a lot because it was already 99, mind you, and this is a Windows 95. But it was definitely enough.
I was a kid. I don't know.
It was enough. I was a kid, and it was enough to install Age of Empires, and for me to play some games, and for me to start learning how to use this mouse and keyboard and interact with this machine, and
military strategy.
And military strategy, Ages of Empire, in 2D gaming, which at the time looked great.
Yeah.
Actually, it wasn't exactly 2D. It was a little better than 2D.
Yeah. It's a fun game.
But yeah, I was inspired as well. Yeah, by our cousin, and there was another point that you mentioned on how that turned into your career, and the pay is good. Yeah, I would say the same for my. My career as a consultant. I would say it's nice to be able to have recognition for the hard work that I put in while I was in school, and to be able to be earn that the pay that I would say is also good pay, and to be rewarded for it. I remember one time when I was in college, my dad walked into the room and I was doing homework late at night, and my dad's a bit of a jokester, so he said something like, if only they paid for every sheet of homework that you did, right? And then it'd be great, and then we both laughed, and I told him, believe it or not, one day they're gonna pay me for this.
Yeah, they're gonna get paid.
Yeah, and so it's not direct, but I put in the effort, and fortunately it's paid off. And I mean, right now with COVID happening, I think there's a lot of people retiring. I think there's going to be a lot of job opportunities. You just got to know, where to look. You got to know also what are the fields, what are the careers that are out there that are going to be in demand. I think the STEM fields are great, right? The science, technology, engineering, math. I mean, if art is your thing and you feel strongly compelled for it, go for it, but just, if you can, add some, pursue multiple things. Don't just limit yourself to one thing, because the more, skills that you have in your backpack, the more marketable you're going to be. That's if you want to, have a economic advantage anyways.
The thing with art is that it's a lot, it's kind of a gamble. That's the thing. Are there successful artists? Yeah, of course, and then they make money and they live well and all that other stuff. But for every successful artist, there are so many, unsuccessful artists that no one has ever heard of that just flat out don't make it. Whereas if you get a degree in a marketable field, then your likelihood of reaching, a moderate level of success is greater than, the your home run play as an artist, whether it's in I don't know, whatever.
So you guys gotta understand, okay, we're both working in we're both statistically minded. So we're looking at numbers, okay? A lot of times we're looking at numbers, and so just looking at it purely from a statistical perspective standpoint, it makes sense to pursue STEM fields. But, I understand because I have family that is artistically motivated, and so what I've encouraged them to do is pursue both. Pursue, the art, as best as you can, and pursue as well another option that's gonna allow you to have something to fall back on, a safety net, if you will.
Yeah. But that particular family member is really good. Okay.
So, personal highlight reel for me, if I were to think of my life as a maybe 1 minute movie, then I imagine being a little country boy in El Salvador, being naive but very optimistic about the world, and having the desire to get an education because my mom was a teacher. Then, boom, now I'm in the U.S. And struggled a bit learning the language, but after a couple years and with the help of some teachers and friends, family, I start to get it. And then high school years, turbulence, and where you start to have some negative influences and experiment with some things, and but I make it out and then go to college, which was a strong desire for me, again, education from early on. Graduate, that was a very proud moment for me, and to have my parents there, my younger brothers there, to be able to set a bar now that they have to beat. No, I mean, not really. They have their own lives, but low key, yes. And and then after that, being able to land a job that paid well, and that was able to help me jumpstart this journey on personal finance, and then of course get married. Fast forward to today, baby on the way, and I consider myself very fortunate, very grateful. We're still in the middle of grinding. We're nowhere near the end, and that's part of the reason why we're doing this now. Is a lot of people out there that are sharing this personal finance stuff, they're already on the other end of they've already retired early. But hey, we're in the middle of it, and not only do we have our own goals, but we're also very much concerned about our families, and we want to make sure that they're okay, and we have part of our financial goals is also to help them out. And so we have many goals that we're working on at the same time, and so we just wanted to share that out there because I know there's other people that are also going through that similar situation where they need to help their families, whether they're immigrants or not, but it's especially true, I think, for immigrants. And so we hope that our story will resonate, and and will help as a source of comfort if you're in those situations, or if you're a youngster that's going through some of the similar situations that we described. That again, there's a light at the end of the tunnel. So, anyways, and sorry, Gio, I'll
No, you're fine. Yeah, I think for myself too, a personal highlight reel is the journey. Did not start as a country boy, but did start in the same country, and so slightly different circumstances initially. I think our circumstances become more similar when we move to the U.S. That's where they become a little bit more similar. But yeah, your parents focus on providing. And so to a certain extent, you're kind of learning the ropes on your own a little bit as a little kid, beside the language and the culture, just everything in general. And that obviously going through high school, right, is kind of a rough patch. It's a rough patch for, I think, the vast majority of people. In our particular scenarios, it was a particularly rough patch. But yeah, having our parents, once I spoke earlier that I mentioned earlier that I had made a conscious decision to get my act together once we moved to Nebraska. And I have a great appreciation for my parents and everything that they've done, and that they've done for me and my brother. I love my brother very much too, so shout out to my brother. And having gone from the difficulties of being an immigrant, being a high school kid, with broken English and everything, to going to college, right? Being able to do that. I got through college, believe it or not, debt free because of my parents. In part because of my parents, in part because of I happened to work at a company that helped with tuition reimbursement. But my parents have had worked basically their full-time jobs and then a second job to help put me through college. And I was working and I was pitching in, so it was a group effort. So I appreciate them very much. I love them very much. And, that eventually leads to a better career. I was a homeowner in Nebraska, so that's a milestone. Eventually, I met my wife in high school, whom I love very much. I met her in high school, but we connected once, some 10, 15 years ago after I had already moved from LA. And then we connected again recently, and I'm back in California now, and I married this girl, and I love her very much. I inherited a family as well, and yeah, we're now raising kids. We have started this project not as a way to make money or anything like that, but instead to share some of the information that we have learned over time. And yeah, we continue to grow. We continue to grow mentally, okay? Grow financially, grow mentally, grow in a multiple ways. And I think down the road for ourselves, for my wife and I, is going to be a larger role in helping our parents, kind of the same way that they helped us when we were kids. Life has that tendency of kind of reversing the roles, and we're fortunate to be in a position where we may be able to help, and we recognize that. And part of that recognition leads to a desire to share what we have and what we know with other people, so that they may eventually get to the same point as well. Like you said, we're not at the end. We're not retired. We're and I think you guys are probably gonna retire before we do. You guys are a little bit further ahead, but we're trailing you, and we're right behind. But yeah, I think, and everyone's projects are different. You know, everyone's outlook is different. Everyone's circumstances is different. But generally, I would say, in terms of myself, the highlight reel is having gone through that period of being born in a third world country, being born during a war in a third world country. That eventually, you know, we moved to the U.S. And my parents hustle like nobody's business, and yeah, eventually it pays off for me, and it pays off for my brother. We both graduate, and here we are, just kind of working on our own futures now, working on futures for our families, and yeah, that's...
You know, hearing you say that reminds me of a story of one of my uncles. I have an uncle who I will not name, but I thought his story was kind of cool. And maybe we'll wrap it up with this. He lives in the New York area, New York, New Jersey, and he works cleaning the skyscrapers, the windows on those really tall buildings, which I don't think you could pay me any amount to do this kind of job, by the way. And there was an incident on the news several years back where I think it's called the scaffold, the piece that holds them with the rope or the metal wires. One of the sides gave loose, and so he was up there with another guy dangling.
I didn't know this.
Yeah, so he's up there with another guy dangling, and they had the whole like fire department, police department, all these different, the port authority or whatever out there trying to figure out how they were going to get them in. So they cut the glass from inside the building, and then eventually, after I don't know how long they were out there, at least like I don't know, maybe half an hour or something. Eventually, they pulled them both in. But the point I want to get to at the story is, sometime after this happened, and they were both fine. They interviewed them. And my uncle is probably in his, I don't know, mid-50s or something. And the other guy was younger. He was, I don't know, I'm going to say maybe mid-20s or... and they interviewed them, and they asked them, like, hey, are you going to keep doing this job? Are you going to go back to this job? And they were forced to take time off, a couple weeks, I think, because of this event that occurred. And the other guy that was there... was saying, hey, you know what? I have a wife and kids. Maybe I'm going to see if I find another opportunity. I don't remember exactly what he said, but I'm going to see if there might be something else closer to the ground, right? And then they cut to my uncle and they go, well, what about you, sir? And he doesn't speak a whole lot of English, but in the little bit of broken English that he speaks, he gets close to the mic and he says, if they let me, I'll go back to work tomorrow. God bless America. and
you gotta eat.
And I just, you know, in that moment when I heard that, I was like, wow. I was proud of my uncle, and at the same time, I'm like, wow, this guy's a little crazy, but you know, that is the immigrant spirit for you right there at work. Is there is a strong desire to work. There's a strong work ethic and to get ahead and to do good, I think. So I'll leave it with that.
Yeah. That's good.
All right. Well, we hope you found today's episode, insightful, interesting, or whatever. As you can tell, some of this stuff is a little bit uncomfortable for us to talk about, but you know, I wanted us to do this because this is not the kind of content that you really see out there. You always see on social media all the great fun stuff that everybody's doing, or you always hear the stories of, you know, the overnight success or the after the fact, you know, I'm retired and living my life and buy this and you'll get to hear all my secrets. But no, I mean, this is just us putting it out there the same way we would share this with our kids, family or friends, anyone that wants to listen. So we hope you find it useful, and if you liked it, hit the like. subscribe, notification bell, comment, all that good stuff. And we'll see you next week.
We'll see you next week. I think that was great.